Go live. Go live. Okay. Here we go. All right. Super nice to have you here, everybody. We're starting here with our hyper-real interviews. We have here with us today Andrew Kessler from Zanotta, also Byron from Zanotta, Ariel Manzur, a co-founder of Godot, and Hitesh, also uh, from Anitya, and Pedro here from newkinco and Anitya, and we are here to have a low-key conversation about all these incredible things that everybody here is doing. And just to start, I wanted to get the chance for us to get to know you a bit. So I would love to start with you, Ariel, and if you can just disclose who you are. And I know that you're talking from Argentina, so it's the morning for you. So good morning. And just tell us very shortly about who you are and what Godot is. And that will be a lovely.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, Ariel Manzur. I'm a co-founder of Godot Engine. Godot is an open source game development game engine. Uh, Pretty big. We have a pretty big community of contributors. We were just last week did a meetup in Europe. Bunch of people came. Yeah, it's a game engine, 2D, 3D, pretty featureful, and it's open source, MIT license, so no strings attached. That's it, I think.
Amazing. Thanks so much. And we uh, can follow with Andrew. Maybe we had the chance of meeting uh, in Davos and have had one of the most inspiring conversations over there where we stuck on a chair for a few hours, and since then we've been in touch. So really nice to have you here, and would love to understand a bit more about Zenotta.
Yes, guys. Pedro, thanks so much for the invite. So Zenotta has been sort of spending its time trying to understand how data can really work in a blockchain environment. So one of the sort of big challenges we see at the moment in the ecosystem is that people are trying to do data rights and data management on two different chains. So you might use something like IPFS or Storage or Filecoin. There's a number of them to do data management. And then you might try and do your data rights on something like Ethereum or Solana. And these are all great built for purpose chains. But who's making sure that what's happening in storage is also what's happening on rights transfer? So we see a lot of kind of attacks, things like rug pulls, where just because I've given you an NFT or the rights to something doesn't mean that that thing exists when you try and go and redeem it, or what you're redeeming is the correct thing. Now, there are a lot of people doing a lot of smart work on making these problems go away. We've chosen a sort of a very elegant and simple approach, and we've been able to combine data rights and data management on a single entry on a ledger. And if I can say that Ethereum, well, Bitcoin is a payment network, right? I mean, what you pay with as a store of value, that's the attractive thing. I can pay you with gold, or I can pay you with equities. And so the asset class of Bitcoin is exciting, but it's a payment network if you just look at what the network can see. And then Ethereum, you could say, is an investment network. You can use things like ERC20s to make investments. But Zenotta's network is fundamentally a trade network. And so we can take data on one entry of the ledger, and we can take coins on the other entry, and we can do a coins for data swap. And that's kind of the base push mechanic in our ledger. And so it's a contractless transfer mechanic. So you get access to the file, you get the rights to the file, whether it's a file or a stream or a WebSocket or whatever it is, you get all of that at the same moment that somebody else gets a coin. So that's what we're excited about, and we really think that this is going to be exciting in gaming and metaverse environments.
Super good. Thanks so much, Andrew. Byron, since you are the also working in the project head of engineering, would you like to add anything to it?
I need to say that it's taken us quite a long time to come to the solutions that Andrew's just mentioned, but it's been an exciting journey all the way.
what long time means for you? Because it's
yeah, Andrew, you may have to jump in on this one because I mean we've been conceptualizing a lot of the protocols and ideas for quite a long time, on the order of years. But I think it's been, I mean, how long has it been, Andrew? Maybe
we started thinking about these problems in 2014. I think we were sort of excited in 2016. We thought we could actually start, and because it's non-trivial, right? The nice thing about coins is they just go round and round in a ring. I mean, if you could move $1 fast enough, it could supply all your economic needs as a means of payment, right? But data doesn't live like that. Data gets created now, and then it might need to be destroyed in 30 seconds time. So the way it flows and moves and the way it aggregates is extremely different to how tokens move. And so, I mean, what the blockchain ecosystem is really, really good at is token mechanics. But that doesn't mean that they're good at data mechanics. These are two very different problems. So we went very deep. I mean, we went all the way down. We try to look at how Unix constructs everything as a file, architectures. I mean, there's a lot. There's really a lot. And what does it mean to set distributed clocks? So we started this all in 2014, thinking about it. 2016, we bashed out the first sets of code just to get something very elf and dirty working, to see that our approach could work. And then I think 2017, 2018, we really started with a proper team pushing proper code. And, we're at the stage where we've done the pipes and plumbing. And we're now only moving to the sort of the high level protocol layer. Yeah, as Byron said, a long time. But crazy things we discovered along the way. Lots of, Ariel can relate. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it as Godot or Godot. I say Godot for some reason. I don't know why. Fan of the project, been looking at it for years. But it's the same thing. These guys started, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Was it 2013 or thereabouts?
No, a bit before. I think 2008, maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it went public around 2013. Yeah.
And then, I mean, you guys, I mean, it's the same journey. You think, okay, cool. You've got the base core there, and then, you have to add extra features. But, in design, and Byron is the wizard of design. There's the principle of solid design. So things should be, the O in solid stands for open to addition, but closed to modification. So, it's yeah. Anyway.
amazing. Hitesh, perhaps.
I have so many questions to ask here already. And like I never thought about this. So actually, like, I mean, you have so much data movements, and like, I mean, obviously you rely on third parties to be able to, like, okay, when I tell you to delete your data, you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. So there's no responsibility towards data management. And what you're doing is you kind of like bring them together in the same token type of a system where you say, okay, when me as an owner of my data, I can basically make sure that I still retain the rights for the management of it, right? So that's what, in a sense, you're trying to do, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if you allow yourself a small amount of central control, you can do anything very trivially. But we had to keep that gold standard of no central control, and that's not us being against governance or control or anything like that. It's just the economies that we want people to build must be inclusive, it must be far-reaching. And the moment you have any form of central, what's cool, what's interesting to note about just normal stacks. I mean, just take Bitcoin, right? It's not the Bitcoin that really, even though it only does 6 transactions a second, that's not really the bottleneck. It's the exchanges, it's the markets. Because we still don't really have a very good sense of what does a distributed market look like. You still go to like Kraken or Binance or, the central party, and then they need to get your credit card details. And, so wherever you don't have full distribution, that's where these things choke out. Now, if that's tokens, it's infinitely worse for data. If you had a central authority you had to go to KYC your data, this thing would die. So it's distribution all the way. So that wasn't us trying to be anti-governance. It was just the only practical way to do it. Like I said, we ended up treating data like a heap entry and governing it from a stack entry. So if you think about blockchain as a stack framework, right? Then what we've added is a heap memory allocation. But now the moment you've got a heap and a stack, you need a pointer, right? I mean, for the techies in the room. Or you need a reference, or you need some way to map what's happening in the stack and the heap.
Sure.
Rust, as a programming language, does this very nicely. They've got something called the ownership model, and we had to create that for blockchain. So that if you have multiple copies of something in the heap, you need to have equal number of copies in the stack, so that there's a strictly one-to-one ownership preservation. So the problem with hashes, right, is a hash doesn't uniquely identify a heap resource, because if you copy the heap resource, the pointer now points to two things. So data, how do I handle copy, edit, update? How do these things work in a blockchain environment? And then, to blow everyone's mind, what does it mean to delete a file from the blockchain? Right? These are deep things. So Hitesh, you're right. This is the thing that keeps us up at night, and we've actually solved these things. But yeah,
Hitesh, maybe you can share a bit on what we're working on and how this all relates to that, and then we can probably open another round of conversations on how Godot and NFTs and all those questions kind of come together.
So basically, a few years ago, I met Pedro, and we had always been talking very passionately about this decentralization movement. We realized that there are so many things which are not hashed out, or rather, pun intended, and so many things that needs to be built. And then we recognized that it's just not so fair that all the Web2 companies, they're bringing all of their shit into this Web3 space, and all the nonsense that they used to do, they're bringing exactly the same and bringing it here. So we realized, like, okay, this is not cool. We want to actually, we want to do something. So for example, like Facebook, right? Like, I mean, they want to realize this digital immersive space, but then they want to do it their own way, where they control so many aspects. So, and that was not cool. So we had like many discussions about this. And then we thought, hey, we are small people, but like if we join together, we can actually create that digital immersive space as well. We can offer a different alternative where in this metaverse, people can actually have digital sovereign rights to the things that they create, be it an NPC, be it avatars, be it code even. Like, people should have the digital sovereign rights, and for this reason, we actually decided to choose Godot to create a metaverse builder, and we are serving, or we want to basically aspire to help many aspiring creators, many inspiring people to come and create the metaverse, not in the way that Roblox or Facebook is imagining to do it, but rather to do it in the spirit of the decentralization way. So we have some cool insights on this, but basically we found Godot to be a perfect platform to build on this, and that's why we are here, spending a lot of blood and tears in solving certain problems. And so that's a little bit short intro. So I'm product guy, so I do understand all of the things that you said, but I left engineering behind like 10 years ago. So I do sort of understand what you're saying, and I would definitely love to get a little bit deeper on that.
Hitesh, I just want to jump on that comment you made there, because I couldn't agree more. You know, when we're looking at something like the naming space of Web 2 goes to Web 3, it makes it look like a sort of if you're looking at Semver, it looks like the next major version. But it's not. It's a completely different way of thinking about the problem. So you're not just going to simply extend, you know, where you've come from and then make it work. And there's so many reasons for this, not just emotionally, technically as well. One of the things that we've really also spent a lot of time thinking about is the legal frameworks. You know, you can, the analogy is maybe not perfect, but, you know, you need maritime law when you go out to sea. There's kind of a law between jurisdictions when you're kind of afloat and adrift. And maritime law is actually pretty cool. And in many regards, we need an internet maritime law. It can't be so slavishly tied to my jurisdiction. When my data's at sea, is it protected in international waters? Or does, you know, do nation states get to train the ML bots off my data just because I needed to route it through their waters? So these are real legal issues. And one of the things that frustrates me about smart contracts is, where on earth is smart contract law? I mean, if something went horribly wrong with my data somewhere out there, what can I truly do about it? So we've actually been building the legal frameworks as well as the technical framework and the economic environment, because this is truly, and that's Hitesh, just to build on your points, Web 3.0 is multidisciplinary. People building Web 2.0 were web developers. The guys building Web 3.0 are going to be people that have spent time in society and bringing their value sets and their insights to Web 3.
100%. To complement that, actually, one of our biggest clients are actually a non-profit social organization, where we spend so much time thinking, how can we make it fair that this is just for kids? How can we make sure that they are protected, they're in a safe environment? And it's really funny that we on one side, we're building a really technical product, but then at all times we have to think about, how can we make it correct? How can we make it socially and logical? How can we make it that nobody's data is getting abused, and build it in a fair manner? So this is definitely true. I like that point that you said. This will, Web3 is going to be built by moralists and socialists, and not socialists, people who have a moral compass, people who have a lot of principles that they run through. 100% agreed.
So when it comes now to all these next steps of what is emerging, especially in this multiplayer environment, and that it seems that so much in the web is tending there, what do you see coming over the next years, and what has it changed, especially also for you, Ariel? What has it changed over the last years, when now there's so much momentum for multiplayer gaming and metaverse and all of those things? And what do you think we should take into consideration here?
So a big change, I think, is the web as a platform for games. We kind of chased this for a long time. We tried initially there was Unity on a Netscape plugin that was a very big, and that was very popular for them, and we kind of tried it a bit. There was also Flash as a C++ target, you could compile C++ to a Flash bytecode and then run it on the Flash plugin, and then Google had the native client platform, and eventually WebAssembler is the thing that everyone's using. It's working pretty well. We're seeing good standards from from Chronos for 3D, stuff like that, and so it's becoming on the technical side, it's becoming a very good platform. There's a question of the business question, right? Do you make a AAA game, put it on the web? But that's a question for the business people, I guess. But yeah, good. Right now, the sort of topics that interest me are, for multiplayer games on the blockchain is can we use the blockchain as a multiplayer server, as a decentralized multiplayer server, right? Like a blockchain like Ethereum is very similar to a multiplayer game server, except it's very slow, right? You have, you want, I don't know, 60 state updates per second, and you have 4 per minute, something like that. And so, but we could run a smart contract and play a game of chess over a smart contract, right? But because that's a game that has very low frequency updates to the game state, and very rich local, you have to think a lot, and then you do one update to the state, and then the other person has to start thinking, right? And so can we do that for a game with higher frequency, updates, or can we create a class of games that take advantage of that, like chess, but I don't know, something. And so that's something I'm interested in. I'm also interested in a standard format for this kind of for like a 3D scene description. Because nowadays, you have these NFTs with like a picture, a PNG, and that's that you can play that anywhere. And then you starting to see like 3D objects, maybe like the OBJ format, maybe GLTF format, and so you can put that on an NFT. But can we start having more complex scenes with logic, with animations, with logic that takes over the elements from the environment where you put it? So if you put, like, let's say you make a mini game, you put it on an NFT, and then you load it inside a 3D space. The minigame maybe needs to interact with things from that 3D space, and so it's like a standard, not only a standard description for that scene, but a standard way to interact with, the people playing that minigame, the world around the minigame, stuff like that. That's very interesting to me. That feels like another kind of HTML5 size standard, which evolved over like 20 years and very, it was very clumsy. It would be nice to think about it. If we think about it, it would take less time. I think it would take some time, but it might take less time, and it'd be an interesting thing to have, I think.
But Ariel, help us understand. So why would you put a game on an NFT? Like, what benefits would the players or the creators actually get from it?
Why? I don't know, but it's the thing that everyone wants to do. Like, how everyone wants the NFTs to be completely like interoperable between all the games.
Yes.
And so it's I think it's content, right? It's an interesting question because it's content. And so if you let's say if you run your space, like let's say you have a bar, you own a bar in like a 3D virtual space, and so you need to have content, you need to have mini games in your bar, or you need to have experiences. And so somebody can develop an experience and you kind of sort of license it to be used inside your bar, for example, something like that. And this is something that this happened in what's it called, the famous kind of metaverse game Second Life, EVE Online, those kinds of old school spaces. People were running businesses on them, and they were running bars and clubs and things like that. And so this is content, and this is content that is more complex than just a picture. And so there's the question of the ownership versus the licensing versus the data, because if your minigame is in my bar, I need to be able to download all the content of your minigame to be able to play it in my bar. But if I'm not the owner of your minigame, I still have all the content of your minigame. So there's that question, right? But yeah, it's I mean, the at the core, the NFT, the idea of the NFT is that it took the idea of owning a non-fungible, owning an item or owning something, and it took it out of the centralized, like, you can own a sword inside a game, but that sword lives inside the server of that game. The NFT made it so that there's no server, but you can still own this sword. The sword exists. And so, you want that to have more complexity than just, it's just a number, or it's just a, and so, it's that sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, Ariel. I'd very much like to hear what Byron has to say, because Byron's the guy in our team who's our pro gamer of all our developers. We have a few, but he leads the pack. I just want to sort of reiterate a little bit what Ariel was saying. When you have I used to like Diablo. That's probably giving away my age a little bit. But if you want to kind of sell your Diablo 3 character or do something with your Diablo 3 character, you're immediately faced with kind of gray sites. EVE Online, I mean, there were property deals that sold for EVE Online for close to $100,000 right? Now, what if who believes in that valuation outside of the game environment? I mean, just as a thought experiment, if something was really worth $100,000, could I take it to the bank and use it to collateralize a loan for something? And the answer is absolutely not, because it depends on how well the game developer has secured the asset. What if it gets deleted, or what if it gets nerfed? What if the game developers change the economics and the environment of the game through incremental updates? I don't have any sense of economic or legal control over it. And when I was younger, people used to say, I have a level 3 paladin in game XYZ. But that shifted to, I am a level 3 paladin. I think people identify much more immersively with their characters. It's gone from a sort of a sense of, I'm from beyond the screen looking in, to I am part of this universe. And so we really want to be able to bring third parties in, different games. Some of them might be competitive, some of them might be collaborative. We want to be able to merge these experiences together and have continuity of ownership, continuity of value, whatever it is. And then I also just want to add that I think we're going to see a lot more client or user-generated content over time. I mean, it starts off with a simple skinning of an item, but it becomes far more complex. And if you want to be able to give users kind of a vote in the universe or some control over an asset, and you have it in a server architecture as opposed to having it in a blockchain environment, it makes the collaboration far more liquid and fluid in a blockchain setting. But Byron, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly just a reiteration of what you've said. I think I think games, and there's maybe one or two other forms of media that really people have a very emotional connection to, that transcends the fact that it's a Bethesda game or something like that. I think there's really a sense that there's an intrinsic emotional sense of ownership that we have to characters within games, to the items, to the world. You see it sometimes in movies as well. Just look at the last Star Wars trilogy. And I think there's a lot of that same sort of thinking in games as well. The worst thing you can do is have a server shut down on a multiplayer game that you've really been enjoying for years. It's also one of the reasons why I think things like Google Stadia has not picked up as much as they probably thought, because there's an idea that Google can kind of shut it down at a moment's notice, and then I've lost everything that I've kind of invested a lot of time and energy into. So I think what the NFT idea when it comes to gaming has really struck a chord with is this idea that I can finally own a piece of this world that I've invested time in without being beholden to that world, if that makes sense. So it's not purely up to the creator or purely up to the guy who's running the server as to whether this thing that I've invested a lot of time and energy into is owned by me. So yeah.
I'd just like to add a very, very quick point. I think also what people are doing is they're trying, if you ever find yourself in the position of enjoying to eat meat and then deciding to become a vegetarian, what you mentally do is you look for meat substitutes. You don't really embrace the potential of a new way of thinking. You just go, well, how can I make an aubergine taste like a steak? And I think we're in that phase of what do we not enjoy about current games, and how can NFTs plug that kind of obvious problem? But I think it's going to be more exciting to see what they could enable. So I could take other digital assets, music that I might own, and if we have Ariel, using descriptors and common formats and standardization is going to be critical to sort of multi-porting across different environments. I will be able to then feed that song as a stream into my multiverse. Or I can take a game item from out of this universe and put it into that universe. That will certainly be very exciting. And what's kind of interesting is the amount of competition, or the presence of competition within games, means that games behave according to kind of normal economics. So some NFTs, like if you look at a PFP profile pic NFT economics, it doesn't kind of make sense. And even Bored Ape mechanics seem not to fall into the normal gambit of what you expect from normal economic items. But the strong degree of competition means that game items are priced very efficiently and very rationally. It's very, very close to our universe. And I would even argue that most of the time, digital representations of things are less exciting than the real version. A digital coffee is always a watered down version of a real coffee, except for games. And so I think in gaming, the digital experience is more enjoyable. I mean, just look at FIFA for Electronic Arts, right? I'd much rather play electronic soccer than real soccer. It's far more enjoyable. And so with this in mind, we not only have that the deep personal sense, there's also a sense of community and socializing. And so I think what we'll probably see in the next 2 to 3 years is an innovation away from just doing standard games, but with blockchain 8-bit crappy graphics, where you can only do card games or chess games, to really understanding the format and building these universes to extract the new potential.
Do you guys think that it's possible that you could have like a new genre of game based on blockchain mechanics?
It's already happening. I think there are already. I was just reading through a couple of days ago. Like, there are like 20 games who have come. Like, obviously, they're very, very basic in terms of like being able to like have like card gameplay, or like this one-to-one Tekken style of fights, and whoever wins get some NFTs, or Pokemon Go style of like going and exploring the world and collecting some NFTs. But there'll be more complex forms coming. For sure. And then to also like to unpack what Andrew said there before, like there's a lot of merging that will happen. So I imagine a world where like a certain type of AAA games are not just coming from this one centralized studio, whereas there's a multitude of people working together and building certain parts of it. Like, I mean, I really like, I don't know all the answers to this question, but I salivate on thinking about like, what if I'm coordinating with like a developer in Chile, for example. He's built a triple jump, which, by the way, you cannot really do in real life. So obviously, digital version of triple jump would be much more fun. So he's made a mechanics with triple jump, and I incorporate simply that into my game. Maybe it's a complex mechanics that he did, and then I just like basically build on top of what he's done, and everybody around the world is doing the same, and then a complex structure emerges, which is very fun to play, which is obviously much beyond the Tekken style of doing things. So I think the complexity with interoperability that will emerge from it, I'm super excited about this. We don't have all the questions to it, but I think this has a big potential to come out in a really nice way.
So Hitesh, just to add on to that, 2 quick comments. So the first comes down to so I always think of a lockbox mechanics that run off a random number generator as an example, right? Now, the random number generator has a 99% probability to give me a common item and a 1% probability to give me a rare item. When we're talking about sort of traditional games that you play kind of for fun, where there's, I mean, not to say for fun, that's almost belittling. That's what I mean. You don't really care if you feel that somehow you suspect that the stats aren't 99-1. You think maybe it's more like 80-20 or whatever it is. But in a highly competitive environment, and when that rare item is worth $100,000, other players want to know for sure that there's nothing happening in my local environment that's giving me an advantage. I mean, even latency and lag, people go bananas out of hitting some high patch of latency during a game. And so with a perfectly distributed clock, if you can get the sequence of timing right, that has a net neutrality, it shows fairness to all players, and a way to generate a random number that anyone who's skeptical can order that number. That's a bit of a plug because we have that feature built into our block data structure. Everyone who mines dumps data into a unicorn generator, which is an uncontestable random number. And so what can happen now is if you're doing an online lottery, it'll actually work in our system, because, I mean, how do you know that, your numbers didn't win, thanks for your money? I mean, how do you prove that accountability? So random number generation. Also, how do you know that that you don't have bots playing the game, just mining and stripping through the world economy to go plug it on a gray site for $10, right? Now, if you're using the proof of work mechanic, it naturally resists DDoS attacks. It naturally resists Sybil attacks in a very sort of computationally intense way. So if we're participating on a blockchain, you don't have that that mass bot or scripted erosion of the economy. You got fair random numbers. You have something where, and it comes, I think, down in the real world to branding. Branding isn't a symbol that you see on a cup. It's a feeling you have of good quality and robustness. And that is what I think blockchain will bring in different flavors to games, is a sense of branding.
Cool. I just see that we are approaching our time here, as you, Andrew, needs to leave very soon. So perhaps we can focus the conversation on some takeaways here that we take with us into the future and to the next conversations.
I would just like to say that not everything works well together in the blockchain space. So if you're thinking about developing or deploying on a blockchain, your choice of stack really matters. Just a sort of a technical thing there. What I really like about Godot is it has everything as a tree data structure. One of the things we try and avoid in blockchains is weird cycles and loops, and so its data structure is very compatible. So the next thing I would say is, if you're thinking about getting into the blockchain space, it's always the experience first. There's a lot of kind of play to earn models that are coming out, but you don't want games to be pay to win. You don't want them to sort of undermine the fun of the interaction. So, games for the sake of having a fun, enjoyable game, build to take advantage of what the new architecture allows for, which is a sense of community, which is a sense of fairness, which is a sense of collaboration. And the way that you build UI, UX to bring that to the user matters. That the user feels that at any moment he can question the system or he can deep dive into stuff. Giving people votes or giving people a say is always fun. And also rewarding people who are loyal or who put a lot of time and energy in is something that we can see a lot more of.
Great. Any other takeaways here from you, Hitesh, or Ariel, or Byron?
I'm definitely going to look a little bit more deeply about how your solution is. I'm definitely very intrigued about the points that you brought up. So, yeah.
Hitesh, well, just for a note on there, go to Zanotta.io. That's our technical resource. It'll be slightly but all over the show at the moment because we're sort of dumping 4 or 5 years of ideation, thought, and development, and trying to get structure to it is always a challenge. But it'll give you a sense of where we're building out. And I really just want to, bring into your mind that as Ariel was saying, people are looking at, how do you do card games? How do you do chess? What we need to look at for our base layer is how do you do an MMORPG that has to support 600,000 live connections? How do you do that on a blockchain? And so for me, what gaming and blockchain is kind of what I call the canary on the coal mines. If you can make gaming work in a blockchain environment, you can pretty much make anything else work. Gaming is surprisingly simple because it comes with a baked-in sense of economics, a baked-in sense of society for free. People have the idea of accounts or wallets. It's not foreign to them. They're tech-friendly users. And now it's just about sort of stitching up the tech with the expectation.
Cool. Ariel, if you have any takeaways.
No, not really. It's it's a difficult problem. Big MMO would be nice, and I don't know. It's a interesting problem. That's where I'm at the moment. Yeah.
And so I think people assume that blockchain is a solved technology. Maybe that's my big takeaway. You kind of think, well, we'll just use Ethereum. Okay, but if you want to enable, let's say, micropayments, if the average good on your system costs $1, right, and you're paying a $3 transaction fee, that just sort of doesn't make sense. And then it's just about picking A, what's out there, but B, just being realistic and realizing that there are a lot of challenges ahead of us. Because blockchains aren't built. I don't want to sound like I'm plugging Zenotta, really not. But blockchains aren't really built with data thinking in mind. They're really not. So there are a lot of protocols out there that use data as kind of a layer 2 on top of a layer 1. But they come with their own challenges because now it's kind of the layer 2 doesn't have the same kind of cryptographic security as the layer 1 does. We really need to think about how layer 1s handle data and build out from there.
Super great. Yes, I wanted to thank you all for the time, and it's been very interesting. I hope we stay in touch, and we should do this again once things evolve more, and we will be definitely in touch with you, Andrew and Byron, and as well with you, Ariel. And thanks so much for your time. This been very nice.
Ariel, thank you so much for giving the world Godot. I've certainly used it to make my own cheesy games to impress my daughter. Hitesh and Pedro, thanks for your time and opportunity. newkinco as well is doing a lot of great things, so we'll definitely be in touch with you guys.
Amazing.
Thank
care.
you, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.